just recording. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, welcome everybody today. And I'm very happy. I'm so happy to be here with you. And I'm also very grateful that you allow us to walk for a short while together through this evolutionary path by exploring the shadows. For me, it's an evolution. It's always an evolution. So we will be together for 1 hour of our evolutionary path. So before we start our exploration, I would like to tell you something about myself, to introduce my experience and my deep link to the shadow work. As Ashwarya just said, I am a BCC coach, a mentor. I train coaches worldwide. I am an ICF credentialing assessor as well. I'm Italian. At the moment, I'm in Italy, but I also have a house in Cape Town in South Africa, where I live for part of the year. But having said that, I want you to know that most of all, I'm a human being who is aware of being a soul on a path to evolution on this earth. So this is something that I have learned long ago. Let's say that my shadow work officially began about 25 years ago. When I first went to South Africa. South Africa in the 90s had the power to bring up my awareness about the importance of the role of my shadow. And at that time, I can say I was kind of in search of my life purpose and in search of inner peace. I was younger. I didn't have these things with me, and I'm kind of proud actually to say that at that time I was not really a happy woman. I did not love what I was, and I just took a flight to Cape Town to fly to the other side of the world because I wanted to run away from myself. And I found out that no way, there is no running away on this earth. We actually do not run away from anything, especially not from ourselves. So South Africa was there for me with its arms wide open. It was the only place where I could begin my long walk to freedom, to find my denied self, to embrace all the Cristinas that I've ever been, that I could be. And in those transforming times for South Africa, in those times after Mandela was released and when he became president, I was slowly becoming aware of the presence of my shadow, of my dark shadow and my light shadow. And I understood that the highest and the deepest path that a human being can choose is the reconciliation with our shadow kingdom. And the journey into our shadow, we can call it the hero's journey. It can be achieved through the willingness to embrace this path, to love it and work with specific exercises, very simple ones actually, that allow us to access our precious hidden parts, the parts that we don't know about ourselves. And these parts own our most precious treasures, the talents, the resources, inspirations, lots of energy. And mainly my approach focuses on perceiving your own shadow, allowing my clients, my coaches, the coaches that I mentor, the coaches that I train, allowing them to perceive their own shadow, taking care of it, and create a relationship to it in order to accept it and love it. So the journey into our shadow is, I yeah, I promise you, is the most adventurous and the most exciting one. Yeah, we call it the hero journey, as I said before. It is to find out who we really are beyond the heavy clothes of the personality and beyond all the adaptations that we used in our life in order to be accepted since we came into this world, since the time when we came into this world. So I want to add here the concept that we are dual beings. We live in a world of polarity, and we advance through opposites and contradictions, which are the mirror of the same unity. So to understand this on a subtle level, we could be confronted with everything that hurts us or triggers us in order to perceive its opposite. I've learned that we must honor the darkest parts of ourselves and the most painful of our life experiences, because they allow us to give birth to our most beautiful self, far from any imagination. So just feel free to interrupt me if you have any question, please, and maybe you can interrupt me, or you can just, write down the question, and maybe we have some time at the end and share some questions and answers, because I know this topic is a little bit, sometimes can be unusual, but it can be very familiar at the same time. So let me tell you a little bit more about shadow and energy in coaching. And then I will let you experience a little bit of, what happens when we put questions, very simple questions that allow us to access our shadow. The biggest illusion of our life on earth is separation. Our entire evolutionary journey is to reunite with our wholeness, with all of who we are, all our pieces of the many talents, many resources that we are, that we don't know. Because spirit is wholeness, there cannot be a relationship with spirit that does not include shadow. And dealing with the shadow side of individuals means to address a part of the inner work to achieve wholeness. The shadow is an important aspect of self, very important. It holds important information needed for integration and wholeness. Light and shadow play balancing roles in what we call self-realization. We can't have one without the other. And shadow is usually a blind spot. So it takes, first of all, it takes the willingness to recognize and integrate the shadow. The willingness, we have to be willing to recognize that. We have to be willing to work with our shadow. Shadow exists in every person, also in every organization. And our shadow is a teacher, is a special, unique teacher, available anytime. I also work with groups and organizations. Groups and an organization has their own shadow, as a wall have a shadow that exists. It exists in the hidden side of the members collectively. So the shadow work that needs to be done in organization or groups is a collection of the shadow work that needs to be done by the individuals in the group. And, I've heard someone at the beginning of this call telling that you're working in corporation. It is especially important that the leaders of organizations, or the managers, the leaders of groups, have an understanding and acceptance of their shadow selves. And people are exposed to shadow every day. Think about the dark and negative that dominates the media. It reflects the shadow of the collective consciousness. And I always like to say that being human is a dynamic, imperfect state. There is always room for improvement. So integrating our shadow, it means also to be able to do conscious choices. It involves acknowledging internal greatness, innate goodness, and an infinite power to create what we want in our lives. Yeah, I'm curious at this point of my speech, because I don't want to get bored. I mean, to get you bored, and I would love to listen to some of you if somebody has some questions or something to share.
So Anil has a question, not a question, but he's a comment. So Anil, why don't you share it yourself?
Cristina, while listening to you, can you hear me, everybody?
Yes, who is speaking?
My name is Anil.
Anil, yeah.
And while listening to you, I just shared some thoughts with you that you'll be glad to know that shadow is a very powerful metaphor in Indian poetry and philosophy.
Wow.
Where it's a part of our inner self as a partner in our journey, and it is often our inner voice. So when I heard these words from you, these were the thoughts which came to me, and they had a resonance and vibrance. So I thought I'll share with you that dealing with your own shadow in the Indian poetry, philosophy, way of life is a very powerful metaphor which we are encouraged that talk to you. And we have a Persian word for it, which came it from their saya. So it just resonating with what you're saying. So I thought I will put this up on the board, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Anil. I'm reading now your comment on the chat, and I'm so happy. I didn't know about saya, about the word saya, so I'm very, very happy about what you share. And yeah, it's a partner in life, in our journey, and it's an inner voice. So very nice.
So Cristina, when you say shadow, you're talking about your own inner self, right? Or is it something else that you're talking about?
When we talk about shadow, it's about a part of ourself. It's not just ourself, it's just a part that is in the shadow. Like something like, you know, like an object, like someone who is in the shadow. There is a tree, there is the light, and there is the shadow. And what's it's in the shadow, we don't see very well because it's in the shadow, it's not in the light. And we put in the shadow most of the time what we don't believe it is accepted about us, what we don't believe people might not like about us. You know, we have bought, since we were born, many beliefs in order to be accepted by our society. No matter the culture, no matter the society, we grow up in a culture, in a society, and they tell us how they want us to be. So we are unique. We are all diverse. We are all a unique piece. So sometimes we put in the shadow what we don't want to show, what we don't want to deal with, what we don't think it is accepted by people who people we want to be loved by, the people we want to be accepted by. So, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we will have more questions as you go ahead. in your topic?
Sure. So let me tell you a little bit more that shadow works a compassionate approach towards self and others, and it requires also sense of humor. Coaches who are most aware of their shadow side do not go into judgment, for instance. They can more easily recognize the shadow dynamics, and they can be of service to their client. And as I said, we can use shadow as a teacher. We can use it to expand our awareness, to support our clients in expanding their awareness. For instance, we can start getting some clue about where we can find our shadows. Like when people react strongly and emotionally, they have an important clue that the shadow teacher is presenting a lesson. And that's why, as coaches, we can value our most challenging clients for the lessons that they trigger in us. For instance, pain and suffering reveal the shadow teacher. But I want to specify that shadow is not the pain. It's not in the pain of a tragic loss or in the pain or a terrible experience. The shadow is the attachment to the suffering. The shadow does not cause suffering. The shadow teacher holds secrets about how to transcend pain and how to transcend suffering to become whole. So talking about us coaches usually deals with clients in the present and the future. And when the present is not working, the shadow may be operating below the surface. So that's why, without engaging in psychotherapy, we encourage the clients in our work, in our coaching, we encourage the clients to exchange a negative experience of the past for a positive learning in the present. Because as people, we have the power to choose how we experience the present. So coaches, from my experience, are not ready for shadow work with their clients unless they can learn from their own shadow teacher. And well, just let me, before we start some exploration together, I want to share some questions with you and see what happens. I want to share what I found out in my journey, in my shadow journey, and all the things that I found out, all these things are now helping me very much, so much as a coach today. So first of all, I found out on my skin that if we don't deal with our shadows, there's no doubt they will deal with us. Sometime, somewhere, they will deal with us and they explode like an eruption. They might explode like an eruption. And I found out on my skin that it is our shadow that dictates how much success, how much abundance, how much prosperity we are entitled to create. Third point is that besides, our shadow dictates the way we treat those around us and how we treat ourselves. Somehow the birth of our shadow, as I said before, occurred when we were young, before our logical thinking mind was developed enough to filter the messages we received. So it takes the willingness to let go of what we think we know in order to start the journey to reconnect with our shadow. So if you feel like making an experiment, a very little one, I can start using an exercise just to begin to understand how essential is our shadow. So I encourage you to try to imagine try to imagine a story that you know, a story in a book, a novel, a story in a movie, theater, a real story or fiction, comics, whatever, without any conflict, or a hero without a worth adversary. What would happen?
I've not seen such a script so far. There is always an adversary. There is always somebody else who's there. So such a unipolar script I have never read so far. That's what I want to confess.
Yeah, because what would happen? The hero of any story could not exist at all.
Yes.
So there isn't. Even if you find, you know, a simple story, a light novel, a romance, or a light movie, a comic, or cartoons, even cartoons, they have a hero, but they have an adversary. Otherwise, the hero doesn't exist. So that's what I'm trying to share with you, that the battle with our dark side is needed, and it will never be won through hate and repression, because, you know, it's amazing. If we cancel our darkness, we consciously extinguish our authentic power. How does it sound? How does this?
Yes, so Christina, people are writing here saying that, echoing what you're saying, basically that hero requires a challenge or a challenger and doesn't exist without a villain. It's like yin and yang, you know, they have to be together. You cannot have a hero unless there is a challenge or a villain there.
Exactly. Yeah, there was someone asking, can you repeat the question? The question was, just try to imagine a story without any conflict, or a hero without a worth adversary. What would happen to the story? What would happen to the hero, actually? And I know you are, I mean, in your culture, you are familiar with yin and yang, and that's the point that I'm trying to share with you. So I just leave you a few more questions for your reflections after this call. How can you start using this awareness in your coaching sessions? What could be the value for your clients to become aware of the value of conflicts? And also, what questions can you offer to your clients in order to better support them in their exploration, to allow them to access their authentic power? Yeah, like a one-sided coin. Yeah. Anybody else who wants to share some thoughts here?
So Christina, I understand, and correct me wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, that your question is, how do you manage in the coaching sessions the conflicts that the coachees come up with? Is that the question?
Well, yes, I'm leaving you the questions and you can explore it. We can go a bit further later on, but you can explore it yourself. How can you as a coach can use this awareness about the shadow, about the existence of the shadow, and how can you use it in your coaching session? And what questions, how can you create questions? How can you allow through you questions that can offer to your clients a support in access their authentic power? So these are just open questions for you. And if you're ready, I can take you to another little but deep exploration to understand the importance and the value of our shadow. I offer you a couple of questions. You don't need to share with me or with us the answers, but if you do, it's more than welcome. So the first question is, who is the person in your family whom you judge the most? You can take your time and think about it. And Neha has written, accessing a shadow is difficult because people do not want to acknowledge it. And that's so true. It's a challenge, it's difficult, it's uncomfortable, but it's a wonderful journey. And the more as coaches are familiar, the more we are familiar with that, the more we can be light and comfortable in allowing our client to do that. So, who is the person in your family whom you judge the most? And the second question is, what makes you angry, disappointed, or uncomfortable about her or him? And you can write down your answers. What makes you angry, disappointed, or uncomfortable about this person in your family? Just give you some time to reflect, just a few moments. I know it's quite personal. If there's anybody who wants to share, you can do that. Otherwise, it just go on.
Yeah, this is Anil. Maybe not if my family means my siblings. I do feel I am very critical of my youngest brother.
Mm-hmm. And what especially triggers you in your youngest brother?
What perhaps triggers me most is that he tends to not rely so much on facts, but lots on information which is, I would say, not accurate. And that is my trigger also.
Yeah.
Because in today's world, for somebody not to have accurate information is not possible. However, deluge of information also makes us difficult to find the correct information. So it's a paradox. We have so much of information that judging, we have a problem of plenty.
Yeah, that's so true. And thank you also to Avni, who says, when I'm not listened to. And then Adir, it says, I tend to judge my son when people behave indifferent. So not to be listened to when people behave indifferent. And the thing is that when we find ourselves triggered, I wouldn't say obsessed, but triggered but with aspects of other people's shadows, it is only because they have touched one of our own. In a way, it's not, it's the mirror, the law of the mirror effect, but it's in a way that each of you knows how. So whatever we judge or condemn in another is ultimately a rejected part of ourselves, something that we reject of ourselves. And it's a part of ourselves that needs to be seen, listened to, and accepted, embraced. So this information about the aspects of other people that triggers us, they inform us. It's an information, it's a precious information about our shadow. It's not that we usually do the exact things that we are judging others for, but it's a rejected part of ourselves somehow. We can't see that because it's in the shadow. That's what I mean when I talk about shadow. But at the same time, we could not see it in the others if it does not belong to us. So other people, our family, our friends, people around us, our colleagues, they are so precious. They are the teacher. And when we start to see people around us, from our family to all our society, when we start to see people through the wide lens of compassion rather than the illusional lens of projection, then our shadows are revealed. They are there for us because they are waiting to offer insights about ourselves. So since we are coaches, and I always like to connect the dots, the question is also, what do you judge most in your clients? Because we are human beings. We use judgment, even if we try not to let judgment get into our coaching sessions. But what do we judge most in our clients? What makes us disappointed in our coaching sessions? Or I wouldn't say disappointed, but what makes us uncomfortable in our coaching sessions and in our clients? I'm sorry, I just can't, when I talk, I can't read, so I just stop for a while to read. Okay, when people are fixed, refuse to change their opinion. And Avni says, my brother told me recently that he doesn't have any listening for my profession or work unless I have someone's life, or if I save someone's life, or if I coach a cricketer who scores 100 runs. Oh, this made me feel very judged. Yeah.
I'm surprised. I can't see the comment that you're reading. It's very surprising.
You can't?
The last one I can't see on my screen. I'm wondering.
From Avni. Oh, sorry. Avni sent it. Sorry, it was private, but and then I read it. Sorry, Avni. But yeah, that's also something. Probably, I'm sorry I read it, but it's okay. But it's precious for all of us because yeah, it's you know, it's something that happens so often. I personally feel judged, even if people do not speak, because it's in my mind. Even if, you know, family or colleagues or clients, even if they do not speak, I can sometimes feel the judgment. And I said before that to address our shadow, we also need to be willing to do that. We also need to be willing to do the work, which is not an easy work, but we need to use some some sense of humor. So sense of humor is also needed. And the first step is what is in there for me? I mean, apart from the meaning of the sentence, what is it about judgment that I need to release, that I need to let go? So, because I also found out that we have buried as much of our light as we have of our darkness. So we can find our hidden light shadow in the same way we discover our dark one. I offer you another a challenging question. Try to think, what important public figure, can be a celebrity, a political figure, still living or dead, even characters in the fiction. It can be a historical figure, whatever, just a public figure, a big figure, or a person that you met in your life, even a person of your family, maybe a mentor, a teacher, a friend, that you are very much attracted by. Think about this figure or this person that you are very much attracted by for any reason. So the question is, which qualities attract you in her or him? And again, if you want to share your thoughts, otherwise you don't have to.
Yeah, Cristina, hi, I have a question here.
Yeah, Reka.
Yeah, as coaches, you know, we come from this non-judgmental world, right? Where we are not judging people, but when people judge us, how do we create that balance? Because end of the day, we are also a human being.
Yeah. That's a good question. That's the question. So can you make an example? Do you have an example?
Yes, because, you know, I've met a couple of people where, you know, they don't know me and they were going through some, I think one of them was going through a depression and so on and so forth. But they came and told me that, you know what, you were one of the first people that we've spoken for, say, half an hour, you know, otherwise they were not very comfortable to speak to any stranger coming in, talking to them, right? When I met them in a specific forum. But then you know, one of the incident happened when one of my family members was very judgmental about me as an individual. And at that point, you know, when I could understand that, you know, though they are coming from their judgmental world as individuals, but it does make one uncomfortable when you are not judging somebody, but others are judging you as individuals. But how do we really create a balance for us? Because it's like two swords coming together. You know, the swords may not be the right metaphor to use here, but then it's like two forces, opposite forces coming together. But then as individuals and particularly as human beings, you know, coming from two different worlds, you know, how do we really try to create a balance? Because it's not easy to do that.
It's not easy. It's not easy. Reka, you're right. Thank you. Well, you talk about a balance. You know, when I start by addressing this situation,
sure,
by allowing some space and understanding that when something happens outside me, it's mirroring what happens inside me. That's a rule that I always use. It's a very delicate topic, because when someone judges you, especially in a direct way, it's painful. It
is.
You think, I do not deserve that. So it's not easy to balance, as you were saying. The balance is probably our immediate reaction, our immediate behavior, and what happens inside of us.
Sure, I can definitely share, you know, a thought here. When this incident happened, to be honest, I did not react. Okay, but then it took some time to accept what somebody is judging you. It may not be for the right reason that they are judging you, which is all right. Right? Maybe the intent is correct, but then it's coming off in a very different language from them. Right? But I was able to recognize and be aware of even the physical and the emotional discomfort that I was going through.
Yeah. And think about that. As I said before, when there is pain, suffering, emotional discomfort, when there is, you know, disappointment, it's like our body. When our body is painful somewhere, it is a message. So when you have this emotional discomfort, what was the message for you in that?
What I really realized is that the other person is probably going through some frustrating point in their life, which is kind of reflecting, you know, in some kind of these statements coming up.
But my question is, what was the learning? What did you notice about you, about your story?
What I noticed about myself is, though it took me a couple of days to come over that, but I was able to tell myself, saying, it's okay, right, for somebody to judge me, but I know myself more better than anybody else. It does not matter to me anymore.
Yeah. And this is the surface, you know, this is the beginning of the shadow work, because when you allow yourself, think about, it's like if you and this person were two actors. You were playing a role, like on stage in a theater. And this person was making you a favor to give you a lesson. It was not about that person, it was not about you. Because think about, it's like if this person and you and yourself, after the screenplay, after the, you know, the story was played on stage, after a couple of hours, you go out from the theater and you go, and you are two actors and you go to have a cup of tea together. And this, you know, the story is finished. It was fake. Do you follow me? I mean,
I'm able to understand what you're saying here.
So try to imagine that it was not about this person and it was not about you.
Sure.
So try to imagine, and this is something that you can do with your own. I mean, it's not a simple thing. It takes time. It takes time. Maybe months. I don't know. What was the message in there for me?
Yeah, I was clearly able to get that, and the reason I was able to get that is because I used to be somebody who was a little impulsive, but then also coaching brought that transformation in me to start becoming non-impulsive and getting, you know, not to react on every small thing. So that really, even if I would have been ruminating it at the back of my mind, but then I did not show any reaction initially, and hence I was able to think about and understand in between the lines what was really happening.
And that's the best attitude.
Yeah.
When you're already doing the shadow work, that's the best attitude.
And if I really think about that now, at this point of time, for me, it's no longer relevant for me to even think about it. It's not important for me.
So you see, it's not important anymore because it was the lesson at that period of your life at that time, and that was triggering you because there was something new that has to be resolved or allowed to go. And it's never about the person and about the other, who are just mirroring what is happening inside of us. It's not so easy. I mean, I don't have the answers for you or for everybody, but that's the process.
Sure.
So Christina, I have a question here. So for example, if what I understand is whatever is happening outside you is happening inside you. So whatever is triggering the emotions, the discomfort and everything is basically a reflection of your own self. So if I see that, or if I perceive somebody cheating me, right? I feel that this person is cheating me. Is it a reflection of me cheating somebody?
It's more about you towards yourself. It's more about what do you do with life. It's not about, you know, it's not exactly the same thing. It's the element of what you see in the mirror. So somebody is cheating you. So ask yourself, what are you doing to yourself? What is it about in your life about cheating? You know, it's not exactly, you know, it's not parallel. It's not the same perspective. Let me offer you an example. If I judge, let's put it this way. I judge someone, I judge a woman who is dressed with a too short skirt, too much skin outside, and you know, too much makeup, and okay, maybe she doesn't look nice. I mean, objectively, she doesn't look nice. She's not elegant, but I'm judging her. I could not judge her. I could choose to judge her or not to judge her or not to judge her. And if I judge her and I talk about her, and maybe I share it with my friends or I share it with my husband, I say, well, you see, how can she go out from home dressed like that? She's 50 and she has a mini skirt. So it's not about that I want to get dressed like that I want to be like her, but it can be, then I have to investigate within me. It can be that I do not allow myself to be who I am. And it's not about getting dressed like that, but it's more about to allow myself to express myself fully. Because she's expressing herself through makeup and dresses like that. It's what I see in her. It's not what she's wearing. I don't know if I made myself understood easily, because it's not an easy task, but it's an ongoing process that you keep on doing. And if you keep on asking that, what am I seeing here that I do not express or that I do not see in myself? And your intuition is always right. Your first intuition is always right. Probably it's not a clear thought, probably it's just a feeling, probably it's just an image, but your intuition is always right.
Awesome. So, Cristina, I'm conscious of the time. We have 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
And Martin is saying, the last exercise that you said that when you imagine or think of a public figure, and what is it that you get attracted to? So Avni Martin says that it is knowing who you are and being present with that is something that attracts me.
Yeah. So let me, just share with you a bit more about this topic, about who you are attracted by. If we see someone we want to emulate, it is because we are seeing qualities that exist within us. This is the beauty of the shadow. There is no quality that we respond to in another person that we lack. So whatever inspires you is an aspect of yourself. But in the same mirroring process about what we don't like in other people, what makes us uncomfortable, what causes us disappointment, it's the same with what we admire. Because any desire of the heart exists to support us in discovering and manifesting this desire. So as we embrace our shadow, I always say that we find out that we are living a divine plan. And yeah, people reveal shadow in their language, in their behavior, because the ego separates the individual from others who exhibit the same tendencies or challenge them. So like you were saying, you, Aishwarya, and the other colleague before about what made, the judgment that made her uncomfortable, the ego tends to separate us from others who exhibit the same tendencies that we have in that moment of our life. It can be always different, it's not always the same. So the ego makes us feel uncomfortable, we are offended, we are, we don't like that. What people project and reject in others reveals what we need to look at within ourselves. So just a few more words. It takes courage. It takes courage to change in habitual response patterns to invite shadow to become a mirror for continuous learning. And courage, it's very simple. It is made of core, which means heart, and courage, to act with your heart. So it requires a lot of hard work, a work from our heart, which is compassion towards us and towards the others. This is the base of the basic of the beginning of the shadow work.
Very nice.
So I know we ran out of time.
No, we are on time, and if there are no other questions at this moment, because I don't see anybody typing or raising a hand. So maybe if there are other questions, we will bounce it off to you on a personal note, and we could answer that there. But okay.
Absolutely. Oh, there's Avni. Are you saying that everything we see in others, good, bad, and ugly, is all what we have within ourselves, and that we should look at all uncomfortable incidents with compassion for others and ourselves? Well, Avni, it's not that all that we see in others is in ourselves. It mainly what triggers us, what what belongs to us in those people, something that drives us crazy. We perceive we have anger about some behavior of some other people, or the judgmental people, something that we see that we don't like. It's even something that you look at television, you see a political person or an actor or somebody, and you judge it. So it's not exactly what we have in ourselves, but it belongs to us somehow. It tells something. It is an information about what we have to let it go, what we have to transform. So compassion means that we open our heart and we open ourselves to learn, to know more, to discover more. This doesn't mean that if someone judges us, Reka said I was able not to respond. we can also respond. I mean, doesn't forbid us to react. But the question is, what is in there for us in order to evolve and in order to let, as coaches, to let our clients to be aware of what is going on in their life. So someone says this is an intriguing topic. Any recommended books to learn? Yeah, I have quite some books. So please, Aishwarya, send my email address to all the, or I just write my email address here. Here. So if someone is willing to, oh no. Sorry.
Did you reply somebody privately?
Okay.
Now it's there.
Yeah. So if someone wants any information about how I use this approach, because I have a lot of things to share and more to share about these, some books, especially some books about that. Not many actually, because in my career I developed quite a lot about that from my own experience. I can send you my some slides of the workshop that I usually offer, and I would love to share this information.
So Cristina, I'm conscious of your time as well, and